welcome to Dawai Kudroen. My guest tonight is Madam Aruna Roy. Madam Aruna Roy has been working as a socio-political activist in India. I don't want to risk giving wrong information or wrong introduction to such a wonderful personality coming here on my show. So if you could tell us a little more about what you do and the organization that you are working with, the Mazdoor Kisan Shakti Sangathana.
Well, actually, I'll go backwards if I may. I'll start with the present. I work with this organization which is called the Mazdoor Kisan Shakti Sangathana, which works for the democratic and civil rights of the poor and marginalized. I went and settled down in this village hut with Nikhil and Shankar and many others about 25 years ago. And then this organization got formed with people's participation. People said that there is democracy, there is the vote, and there are so many things, but when they want to access any of these rights, there are so many problems. So it became an organization that worked for people's access to basic fundamental services and rights, health services, schools, hospitals, whatever.
Yes.
In that process, we began looking at public works. In India, in public works, you are paid a wage, and the wage is the minimum wage, which is a statutory wage. You can't be paid less than that. The government didn't pay the minimum wage, so we went on a series of protests. And then we discovered that the real reason is that we don't get the records. So people said we should see the records. So what records? The panchayat records. So we started wanting to see the panchayat records. From the panchayat records came this learning that government must share its information. So we started a campaign in 1996, which became an all India campaign, gradually and very fast, both. And people got involved from all walks of life. So the demand for a national right to information law began, in which journalists and judges and ex-judges and ex-civil servants and ex-politicians and journalists by the hundreds, by women's and workers' organizations, everybody joined across the spectrum. So everybody saw it as a very important part of governance, very important part of realizing our fundamental rights, a very important way in which to exercise our sovereignty. The Indian Constitution says we people are the sovereigns of the country. But if we are the sovereigns, how do we exercise that sovereignty? So this gave us a way of exercising our sovereignty to ask legitimate questions and get correct answers. So the right to information law first was passed in various state governments. Then in 2005 it was passed by the Government of India, very good law. Then the implementation has been very interesting because right to information is like water. It's a right. It can be right about health, right about women's work, it can be right about peasants, workers, it can be about anybody from all sectors, all classes, everywhere. So it is a universal right. So that became very interesting use, hundreds and millions of ways in which it has been used. And now we have about 10 million users in India of the right to information. So as a part of the right to information campaign, we used to have public hearings in which used to take information to the people and verify that information in 1,000, 2,000, a huge congregation of people. And that process attracted a lot of people, because that's one way of getting the truth about public works, about government development programs, about hospitals, about so many things. Then it got institutionalized as the social audit. And then the first time a social audit was institutionalized was in Rajasthan. But thereafter, when the employment works program, the MGNREGA, the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act was passed, they put that into the act itself. So it's mandatory. If you do MGNREGA works, it's mandatory to have a social audit to see that the money is being rightfully spent and the money goes to the poor.
Ma'am, I'm going to come back to RTI and also social audit aspects. But before that, what actually prompted you to become a social activist or work in an organization like MKSS? Because you initially started your career as a civil servant.
Yes, I did. I found that when I was in the civil service, delivering was such a complicated business because you had to go through the channel and you were never sure that what you were doing would actually benefit the people. And I was very full of unease because the hundreds of papers you sign, you don't know what you're signing sometimes because you can't go through every single paper every day. So you trust your subordinate officers, so you sign. Also, you can't verify every single thing because you can't go to hundreds of places. So the process of governance itself became a very big preoccupation for me. How do you become transparent? In India, we still have an Official Secrets Act, which was passed by the British in 1924 to prevent Indian babus, Indian government officials, from taking secrets out of the government to give to the people who are rising for independence. Now that law is now used against its own people. It's still there. So the Official Secrets Act is to frighten people in the government, saying if you give information, you will be proceeded against by the Official Secrets Act. So I just found this amazing. I mean, why can't you share information about kerosene supply, about rations, about medicines, about how a bridge was built or not built, how a road is being constructed? What is secret about it? There are some issues where national security you don't want to share, but the rest of governance is very simple. So I got very disturbed by it, and then I thought that the best thing is to leave and go and live and work in rural India. My husband was at that time working in rural India, and I went and joined him. And I worked there in his organization for 9 years. And in that time, I got fully schooled and educated, and in a sense, I got de-schooled.
Oh.
I understood what politics means for the poor, what it means to have inequality for women in the villages, how they ask for work, and they're such dignified people, and the compassion in them. You go to the poorest home, they have one roti, chapati, they'll share half with you, and the immense amount of courage they have. So I decided that my life now would only be with them. But then I left my husband's organization, which is a development organization, because I thought one should work with a democratic structure and politics for people, not party politics, not wanting to be member of legislative assembly, member of parliament, minister, prime minister, chief minister, but use the political process for empowering the poor, people who can't get access. In India, there's a big stream from Mahatma Gandhi to Jayaprakash Narayan to Vinoba Bhave, to many people who believe that there can be a people's politics, which is not the politics of aspiring to office, where it is issues of principle, equality, truth, conscience, environment, development if it is unequal, questioning corruption, questioning malpractice, talking about treatment of women, talking of Dalits, treatment of minorities, so many issues in India. So without any self-interest, you question or place that issue in the light of the Constitution and constitutional rights for public debate, so that the government responds and gives them their right.
Okay, ma'am. Now, what is the kind of relation that MKSS would have with the office, that organization that your husband runs, the Barefoot College? The reason why I'm asking this is because people in Bhutan would know more about Barefoot College than MKSS.
The Barefoot College is a development organization, so it raises funds, it gets funds, it runs projects. The MKSS, we are 15 to 20 people, and we all earn minimum wages, and our money doesn't come through fundraising. We don't take funds, institutional funds from abroad or in India. We have a very low budget. We live very simply, and our money comes from friends who support us, and we get donations in kind from local people. They give us grain, they give us time, they give us all kinds of support.
So those friends would mean, because even during the workshop I was told that your organization does not accept funds from the government and also from international organizations abroad. So who would be those friends?
Well, we have middle class friends. We have people whom we don't know, who want to give support the salary of one worker for 1 year or for 2 years. 5,000 rupees a month is 60,000 rupees a year. So for somebody who earns a lot of money, it's nothing. So they feel it's a good way to be charitable. Rather than give the money to a temple or a mosque or a church or something, they'd rather give the money to for people who are working for the poor. We have money we raise, we run some grocery shops, fair price grocery shops, in which again we have transparency. So everybody knows about the wholesale price and the retail price, and it's been funded by the people. People of that area have funded the original shop. So it's on the profits of that the shop keeps running now. We take 1% net profit. And in all festival days, we earn no profit from that shop. It's a workers' shop. And that shop also pays the salary. There are 6 such shops. They now pay the salaries of about 3 to 4 workers a year. So this is how we run.
So are people coming to work for MKSS simply because of the kind of remuneration package you have?
They don't come for the remuneration to the MKSS. That remuneration is just to keep your dignity, because you're not dependent totally. But they come to the MKSS because they are fired by the need to do something creatively and fearlessly for the people, which means engaging with the government most often, but also sometimes not agreeing with the government. But within the framework of non-violence, which Mahatma Gandhi has left us. So all our protests are non-violent protests. We believe in ahimsa. So it means that we don't use violence. But at the same time, we feel that protest and dissent are part of democracy, and that must get some space. So we also fight for platforms where we can have dialogue with government. We also fight for participation in policy. I mean, all this has been a long journey, but actually even in the last 2 governments, there was something called the National Advisory Council, which was created, of which I was made a member both terms. And the role actually that was perceived of me by my movements, whether it was the workers' movement or the National Alliance of People's Movements, or whether it is the National Campaign for People's Right to Information, the Right to Food campaign, or so many other campaigns, they all see or saw the presence of an individual like me in the making of social policy, carrying the words and the thoughts and the plans and the priorities of the poor into national policy. So all these are very good things that were begun. Many of them are now disbanded. Let's see if they will be recreated for a pluralistic point of view, because government alone can't really understand many issues. It needs people's participation. So we are now really on the path of looking at democracy as many-sided, pluralistic. And so government must interface and engage with people directly through the vote and indirectly through platforms where they sit and discuss things with us. So in that we would be very different from the Barefoot College. The Barefoot College would do very good work, but take specific projects like training barefoot engineers, solar engineers, like running a regular school program, like regular health program, which are also important. One is not saying that that is not important. But this activity would be very different from Barefoot College.
Ma'am, you are one of the founders of MKSS. Was it difficult for you initially to start this project simply because there would have been resistance from the politicians, from the bureaucrats? You might believe in ahimsa, but your counterparts may not necessarily believe in ahimsa or non-violence. So was it difficult?
Actually, you know, there are some very important things which I have learned through my work by being abused and doing wrong things myself. I mean, not understanding how to do things properly. But Mahatma Gandhi said some very important things. The first thing, I mean, some things which have remained in my mind. One thing he said was that if you don't listen, you will not understand the people. So, and he himself went on a year's journey in India before he joined the national movement, just to understand. Let's listen. So he said, if you don't listen, you can't understand people. I feel if I don't listen, I cannot speak for them. If I speak for them, I have to listen to them. In the listening to them, like Northi, who has just come with me even on the social audit, they are great teachers, people. They are full of wisdom. They are not militant people, but they are wise people. But they are also fearless people. They will say what is the right thing. they are not as scared as my class is of losing, because there's nothing to lose. So they speak out. But they taught me how to speak out without destroying. Speaking out the truth, speaking out for the rights without destroying is a very important thing. And strangely enough, people who are in the government are not all the same. There are many people in the government who are human beings, are good human beings. Even in the police, there are very good human beings. Yeah. When we sat on these long sit-in strikes, dharna it's called in India, many policemen contributed to us with money and with food grain. They only told us, don't announce our names on the mic. Because we are a transparent group. So everything that came used to announce 10 rupees from so-and-so, 20 rupees from so-and-so, 100 rupees from so-and-so. So-and-so has given us so many kilos of grain. But they said, please don't announce our names. Say it's anonymous.
So how do you do that then? You abide by the requests made by those people?
Yes, it is such small amounts. It really doesn't matter. And if it's so sensitive, we said you give your wife's name or your child's name. We'll put their names there. We won't put your name. But we have had great acts of compassion even from the police. Even today, when we have sit-down strikes, when we have very often in dharnas, in Jantar Mantar in Delhi, we tell the police, we have no quarrel with you. You are there to maintain the law and order. If we break the law and order, you do whatever you have to do. But if we exercise our democratic rights, then since you also enjoy those democratic rights, you'll have to respect us.
Okay. Ma'am, the interesting thing about all this social audit exercise is that you're letting people know that in a democratic setup, you as individuals or as citizens, you have the right to demand what actually is your right, and you also have the right to engage in decision making, engage in those activities that are meant for people themselves. So in trying to do this, there could be so much of resistance, as you already mentioned. Are your people still getting abused like it used to be before?
Actually, the resistance is always there. The resistance manifests itself differently. Previously, it used to be open threats. Now, it's not anymore open threats. But the success of this process as a process which goes beyond, in a sense, governance. It is a governance tool, social audit or right to information. But in some places it's gone beyond that into the realm of ethics. Because for many people it's a bother. How do you, even if you're spiritual, even in Hindi we use the word dharma, which means many things, which means nature, which also means religion, which means so many things. So it's the dharma of governance, but it's also dharma of my life, that I shouldn't use for myself what is not meant to be used for me. So if I am a pious person of any religion, then I don't want to use what is not meant for me. And there are so many ways in which, in Hinduism, in Buddhism, in Christianity, in Islam, there are all tenets that say that you mustn't abuse the confidence and the rights of others. So people have tended to even look at it beyond governance as an issue that concerns cleansing of social life, of untruth, of deceit, of corruption, of arbitrary use of power. So it has empowered people to fight months on end, struggle, really not fight, but struggle to achieve their ends. We have had opposition, we have had severe problems. Some of our activities have had to stop because of so much opposition, but it has re-energized itself. But the biggest compliment is that social audit is now part of the statute of governance, and it has also been accepted by the central audit agencies of India, which is the Comptroller and Auditor General of India, accepts social audit as an authentic means of auditing, because they only do the financial audit. They are unable to go beyond that into performance audit, into public audit, to verifying whether things exist there or don't exist there. So the social audit process does a detailed verification, which a financial audit can never do.
Okay. Initially, when the social audit training started just a few days back, many of the participants thought that by having this social auditing exercise, it almost seems that everything is pro-citizens and anti-government sort of exercise. Is it true?
I don't think so. I don't think so at all. Today you heard the Joint Secretary to Government of India. He says that it's the only way a good government can listen to its people without mismanagement of information in between. So as a good officer, I would have liked to have heard when I was in the IAS the truth so that I could rectify it. So I think it is not a criticism of government. It is a complaint really against the processes of governance. So the processes of governance will have to always be monitored, and the best monitors are the people. So if I see it like that, then I would have been very glad to know that something is not working so that I could set it right, rather than think it's a criticism of me. And good governance is always a combined activity, not in terms of the World Bank, but good governance in terms of the people, which means delivery of stuff. That's why Rajiv Gandhi said, if I send 1 rupee to the village, only 15 paisa reaches. He himself accepted. So in that process, what happens to the 85 paise? So he himself was bothered. So if the government is bothered about real delivery of its services, government is bothered about its real utilization of its services like schools, like hospitals, to monitor the teachers coming, then the people are important. And actually democracy and the deepening of democracy should lead it towards participatory democracy. The representative can do so much and no further. So in that process, since I give a vote and I transfer my sovereignty to my elected member of parliament or my elected member of the legislative assembly, when I go and ask my elected member, what are you doing? I gave you the vote. What are you doing with my vote? Then what are you doing with the money? Have you spent it rightly and properly? Why haven't you brought me the hand pump? Or why haven't you done this? Asking my civil servant whose taxes, by taxes go to pay his salary. So I can ask him, why did you make this policy? Why didn't you consult me when you wanted the bridge built? Or why didn't you consult us when you wanted the bridge built? This is towards building a consensus rather than being anti-government. It is not anti anybody. It's pro-participatory governance. It's to look at financial management in a constructive way so that you don't have to then have enquiries, then to have an anti-corruption case, then put you in jail. All that's unnecessary. If you genuinely go through the social audit process, you prevent the bigger crimes from happening.
Okay.
And as my friend said today in the meeting, this very good Rajasthani folk story, that there was this rich man sleeping and one night a mouse ran over his stomach and he raised hell in the house. So everybody came running and said, why are you shouting? What's happened? And he said, a mouse went over my stomach. They said, only a mouse. He said, yes, today it's a mouse, but tomorrow it will be the snake that will cross over my stomach behind the mouse. So I want to stop the snake. So social audit is really to build a better country, to make sure that as when small things happen, you stop them. Because small things are big things.
Having attended this training workshop, those participants would be the key individuals who will be embarking on the social audit exercise. But what are some of the things that if you could have some sort of, maybe may not be necessarily be a silver bullet kind of solutions or features that we need to look out for, but initially when you start, what are some of the key components that we should look out for?
I think I wouldn't use the word bullet at all. I would use the allegory of a gardening tool. When you want to build your garden, you have to dig the earth. That's all the social audit is doing. It's digging the earth so that your grass, your plants, your trees will grow very nicely. But the first thing, essential thing is transparency. There must be information available, and all the information that's not critical should be easily shared. And there's a campaign around the world now for open governance, that all that is important to keep secret, government knows, it will never share. But the rest of it is very simple information, it should be shared.
But ma'am, what if we have a non-transparent government?
I think you don't have that problem in Bhutan, so you shouldn't really begin with a worry here. Of course there are non-transparent governments, but not in Bhutan. So I feel that in Bhutan there is a desire to build a open and caring society. After all, you have the gross national happiness as one of your great ideas. So in gross national happiness, information has to be shared. If you can't do something, even then if you share the information, people are very kind. But if you can't do something and you don't tell them why you're not doing it, then there is suspicion, there's anger. But the moment you share and say, well, this is it, This is why I can't do it. Everything is easy. So transparency is very important, and platforms where information can be shared with people is also very important. Social audit is one such platform. And then after that, responsibilities must be taken both by the community and by the government. Sometimes the community may lapse, sometimes government may lapse. They take the responsibility, set it right. And then of course there is the whole business of participation. So people have to participate in all this so that they are reassured that we heard everything, we know everything. And then finally you must guarantee them security, because they are all a little afraid. If I speak the truth, will there be someone who will take revenge on me? So the government will have to give them the security, saying if you speak the truth, we will protect you. So ultimately I see in Bhutan a great possibility, much greater than India in fact, because you are a cohesive country, you have a committed government, you have a committed monarchy. So you really have everyone committed to the well-being of people. So in which case this is only a tool which may help you build the connection between the people and the government, to engage the people in thinking with the government for themselves.
Ma'am, through this exercise of social auditing, what we have found out was that people wouldn't really speak out openly. They fear some kind of reprisals, they fear some kind of repercussions if they open up and speak out their minds. So through your organization, or maybe as an individual, do you have any mechanisms whereby you protect those whistleblowers?
Well, we've had a very tough time in India because India is a large country. They've got a Whistleblowers Act passed by Parliament recently. But I think in Bhutan, if I look at your country, I think a reassurance by the highest authorities, whether it's your king or your prime minister, guaranteeing this and getting the message down the line that people who speak the truth should not be attacked, or there should be no revenge taken on them, will work wonders in your state country. So you will have no problems. But in India there are problems, and we've had severe attacks on people who have exposed very serious things, and that has not been necessarily by individuals. It has almost always been by a mafia, and that the mafia, when the mafia attacks, then there is very great danger. And so we want protection from mafia in India. But you have a virgin country now, it's a young country. So if you start this process now, you prevent all those unnecessary, unsavory aspects of society becoming a reality in Bhutan. And I see really your country as an idyllic country. So in this idyll, since modernization will come, since modern governance will come, since elections will be held, since all that will be held, we have to have the preventives of the things that may go wrong in that system as the thing grows. And then it will be a healthy state with a healthy government and with a healthy governance.
Ma'am, thank you so much for your time. I wish I could have continued this conversation, but you also have a busy schedule then, and we also have to stick to the time limit that is given to us. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for all the words of comfort that you have for Bhutan. With this, we come to the end of our interview. Thank you so much for watching Dawai Kudroen. It's time to say good night and Tashitelila.